Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, good day, everyone. I'm very happy to share my thoughts on sustainable development goals in education and the relationship with personal stories as a research methodology. My name is Farooq. I'm working as a faculty member at the Department of English Education, this university, Universitas Islam Malang. And thank you, Pak Soni, for this opportunity to talk about my expertise in the area of researching personal stories for SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals in education. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start my talk with this agenda. First of all, I'm going to talk about Sustainable Development Goals as a general, and after that, I'm going to talk about the nature of stories as well as stories and SDGs. And my talk will end with pedagogical suggestions for teachers and also university stakeholders or even other education stakeholders to frame their research methodology for sustainable development goals in Indonesia. I'm going to start my talk with these points of view. So sustainable development goals set out by the United Nations Development Programs has 17 goals basically, and my focus will be on the fourth goals, that is quality education. And I'm going to talk about how quality education can be anticipated or even can be sustained using researching personal stories in the field of education. I'd like to show how Indonesia's SDGs or quality education is right now. So let's take a look at the first slide here. So education in Indonesia or schooling sector has been experiencing a decline in terms of age of schooling and of age students throughout Indonesia. That's in the case for students, but in terms of teachers, Indonesia also is now experiencing the decline of teacher professionalism, where only 31.67% of teachers are already certified or even qualified. And even only 82% something teachers around Indonesia are qualified. It means that the measure of 100% qualification frameworks that Indonesian government need to ensure is not yet achieved for the sake of Indonesia's SDG in terms of quality education. So there are multiple problems in terms of quality education related to student learning, teaching, and also teacher itself. Some problems that I mentioned a few minutes ago is related to how we understand inclusive and equitable quality education. Inclusive education will have to do with many things related to teacher identity, how teachers understand their position and professions. It also relates to teacher emotion, how teacher navigates emotional geographies when teaching. It also relates to teacher stress, related to reforms of curriculum or the change of curriculum every year. It will have to do with teacher stress, and also inclusive education will have to do with student silence or student participation in the classroom. It also will have to do with investment in learning. Investment will have to do with motivation, but it goes beyond motivation itself. If we only focus on motivation, it will be about how students are motivated. But when we talk about investment in learning, it means that how students understand what they are going to grasp in the future through education frameworks. So to understand these multiple problems in terms of quality education, which is related to the goal 4 of SDGs, we need to understand the use of stories as a research in order to comprehend the multiple problems lingering in the area of education. So to understand the multiple problems, I propose stories to be used as a research design in the education frameworks. Stories is all about how people's experiences is examined and how people make meaning of those experiences. For example, like teacher and students. University or educational stakeholders need to understand teachers and student stories in learning and teaching. This is very important because when we want to understand multiple problems related to psychological construct, which is not being able to be measured using numbers and statistical calculation, the only exact way or the best way to use is stories as a research methodology. And why we have to use stories as a research? Why we have to use stories to understand teacher or student learning? Everybody here, I'm sure you all have stories to tell. Everybody has stories to tell. Everyone has experiences to tell, like teacher and student interaction. They are communicating every day. They tell stories each other, like people working in the same workplace. They need to tell something else. They need to tell their experiences, their personal problems, their imagination, their emotion. And it could be done only through stories as a research methodology. One way to do research using stories is first using photographs, or we call it as a photo voice. So this is a samples of how researchers in education sector use photos as a data for their research to understand the multiple problems, the psychological constructs in learning and teaching. The first is about how university students are struggling for their thesis defense. The data were extracted from the photographs made by the student. And the second photo is all about happiness after the thesis defense. This photo was also taken by the student themselves with their friends. And when using this photo, we can understand how the feelings of the students, and also we can understand how they are struggling in terms of learning, in terms of teaching. It also happened with teachers when we want to understand the multiple problems of teacher like emotion, identity, and cognition. We can use photographs of teachers. We can ask teachers to explain what is happening with the photos they are taken. Another way to researching stories is through narrative frame. So this is kinds of prompt to guide teacher or student or university stakeholders to understand themselves, to dig out their emotion and personal experiences using narrative frame. So people or researchers in the education sector can use this frame to help teacher or student or research participant explain their personal stories in a chronological way. This is proposed by Professor Bakweson, a very well-known scholar in the area of story as a research methodology, or as it is known as a narrative inquiry research methodology. So the relationship between researcher and participant in the use of stories as a research methodology is to collaboratively work in constructing meaning. So teacher, researcher, students are working collaboratively to understand meaning from personal experiences. So the output is all about meaning from a story, which is um, uh, which appears within the relationship between researcher and participant. This is how I exemplify the data from stories of one of my students, Anita. By listening to Anita's stories, I could understand how her feeling is. For example, Anita is experiencing learning loss. So this is seen from the data of the interview with Anita, such as teacher was incompetent, or even Anita's English speaking was getting worse after joining the classes of the teacher. So this is how we understand the learning loss, which later impacts the quality of education based on SDGs goals. Another example of a story from Andy, one of my students, of course, I could understand how Andy experienced learning awareness after listening to stories of Andy. So Andy becomes aware of the use of English after entering the English study programs. And it could only happen if I listen to the stories of Andy. So researching personal stories of each participant would be very much beneficial for quality education in terms of teaching and learning activities. Okay, I conclude my remarks with these points of view. In understanding quality of education, we need to go from learning and teaching experiences, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And the construct of learning and teaching will have to do with multiple problems like teacher emotion, teacher stress, teacher well-being, and student silence. This is all the problems that is now experiencing by university or even other education stakeholders to improve the quality of education, especially in Indonesia. So one way to deal with this problem is through making research in education more personal. And these personalities can be only done using stories as a research methodology. So this is why the use of research, the use of stories as a research methodology in terms of quality education is so much important. And I suggest this framework for teachers, for university teachers, for school teachers, and even for those who are very interested in doing research in the area of education. Thank you. I think this is all my talk today. And then please, Sonny, moderator, thank you very much.